Welcome back to Knee to Knee, where we unravel the science of connections and how those connections impact each of us right down to our very health. I'm Mark Marrott, and today we've got something special for you. I'm sitting down with Joe Morton, an endurance athlete, an Ironman competitor, and the host of the Cup of Joe podcast. Joe's story is one of those journeys that remind us why connections matter so much. He grew up in a health food store by his Italian immigrant mother. In early 20s, he nutritionally rebelled, and then in his late 20s, he hit the wall, and then found his way back, not just to health, but to purpose. Along the way, he's broken both ankles and shredded his knee. Most people would have called it quits. Joe called it his ultimate classroom. In this conversation, you're going to hear about the one more philosophy, a simple but powerful mindset that applies to everything from athletic training to sales calls to the way you show up in your most important relationships. We'll talk about Michael Jordan's practice habits, Og Mandino's wisdom on greeting each day with love, and why Joe believes that love, real, genuine love, the show up everyday love, is the secret weapon most people are missing. Whether you're recovering from his injury, chasing a big goal, or just trying to build deeper connections in your life, this episode has something for you. So grab something to drink and just keep your eyes on the road. Let's dive in and get knee to knee with Joe Morton. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Knee to Knee. And we are, this is a great guest today. We've got Joe Morton with us. Joe is, just to give you a little bit of background about Joe, he's an endurance athlete. He's a host of a podcast called A Cup of Joe, which I love your podcast, by the way, Joe. And he's a man that is, proving that a shredded knee can't stop the Ironman dream. Every week, Joe delivers straight talk wisdom on mindset, habits, nutrition, fasting, and the people who lift you up. If you've ever needed a voice that says, do one more thing today, Joe's the guy to tune into. So Joe, welcome so much. I'm excited to have you here with us.
Well, thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and I just love what you're doing. I love Knee to Knee. I love the guests that you're having and the message that you put out. I find that actually we have a very similar approach.
We do. You have the 3 pillars and I have an extra one. Kind of our focus, but we have a very, very similar type stuff that I found what your podcast as well is refreshing. So it's awesome. So I appreciate you coming on. Those of you that haven't heard the Cup of Joe episode with myself, Joe and I were connected by a mutual friend of ours, Heath Thurston, and Heath has been and is a triathlete coach, and he coached Joe to do a triathlon, and he coached me when I did a sprint triathlon when I was in my wheelchair. And so because of Heath, I actually was able to do the swim part because my legs didn't float. Heath and I worked long and hard on getting me to where I could get my legs to float and go through the water. So they weren't just an anchor or a drag, right?
Oh, he'd be a good coach for that. That's what is special. That's what he did growing up.
He's a great swim coach. Yeah.
Phenomenal swimmer. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a race sponsor, and they got me a wet suit / dry suit or whatever. So that kind of helped my legs be a little more buoyant. And then Heath and I spent quite a bit of time in the pool trying to master the technique of swimming with just your arms, it's a whole different ball game. When you're just, those are just dragging behind you. But I got to where I could swim pretty fast. Don't ask me anymore. Now I just float. I am a shape. I'm not in shape. Let's put it that way.
I've never heard that.
So, but yeah, we're excited to have you here. Heath was a great way to connect. And then ironically, those of you that are just tuning in and kind of hearing for the first time, Joe and I actually both served missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, French speaking. And so Joe has been stretching my mind and getting me to speak more French in the last couple of weeks than I've spoken 20 years. And it's really, really elementary, kind of like, where's the bathroom, or, whatever kind of stuff. It's
We
been kind
speak
of fun.
franglais. We speak
Franglais,
franglais.
yes, franglais, exactly. And so it's been kind of fun to stretch my mind and kind of go back that way a little bit. So I keep thinking I got to pull the Babbel out and start refreshing my French. So just to keep up with you. So Joe, tell us a little bit about A Cup of Joe. I like I say, we do a lot that's similar. Tell us about the podcast and what kind of guests you have on. And then I would also like to understand a little bit about, that mindset where you talked about the shredded knee, it can't stop the Ironman, the injury that was the ultimate classroom for you.
You bet. Well, there's a couple of those actually, Mark. So we'll have to choose
Well,
which one you want.
I know. Let me pull out my list for me. I understand
Exactly.
that.
But I appreciate it. And once again, thank you for having me on your podcast, Mark. I just love
Absolutely.
it. I love your story. Super inspirational. And I was telling Mark beforehand in editing your podcast, like I was so inspired, and I listened to it multiple times over from an editing perspective. And I just keep coming away feeling so inspired. So thank you. And I'm honored to be on your podcast. I grew up in this industry of health and wellness, Mark. My parents, I'm from Canada originally. Um, Toronto, Ontario area. And my parents were involved in the health and wellness industry at an early age. And so my father worked from a corporate perspective in a company as the Canadian general manager, and it started in our house. And then my mother owned a health food store. She was an Italian immigrant, so it
Okay.
was called Gabriella's Health Shop. And so I worked at Gabriella's Health Shop in Orangeville, Ontario. And so I kind of grew up with this, but it's interesting for my health and wellness journey, my parents were extremely strict. There were no sugar in the home, no white flour, no white eggs. Let me tell you, they had to come from chickens in the farming community, the whole bit. Like my parents were
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
strict. And at the time, I didn't really care for it. You're a kid. I was just more disturbed the fact that they wouldn't let me go for Halloween. I'm still going through therapy on that one, but like I just
It's
grew
not
up
too late to
with.
dress up, man. It's not, you can still
Oh
go
no, I love
out.
Halloween now. I dress up. I just don't eat the candy. But it's interesting because I did go on that LDS mission like you were just talking about in Montreal, Canada, and my health and wellness kind of swung a little bit. Now I'm out of the house. Hey, I can eat whatever I want. And when you're in your early 20s, late teens, early 20s, your body can handle anything, right, Mark? I mean,
Right.
it's like a
Yeah.
machine, fat burning machine. But as I got older, I get home, get married. Now I'm in the corporate world. And I don't know when it was exactly, maybe around age 28, 29. I was like, what just happened? What happened? Like suddenly,
Yeah.
and I didn't like where I was. I looked ahead and I'm like, I did that Tony Robbins thing. He's like, look ahead 10 years, look ahead 20 years. Is that where you want to be? And I'm like, and if I'm on this trajectory, it's not going to be a good place to be in 10,
Right.
20 years. And so I started to work on getting into shape. And I actually, I couldn't even run half a mile. But it's amazing. Your body's very resilient and it can change really quickly. And so I started getting a little bit better shape. And that's when I got into triathlons. And I did my first sprint, and that worked up to Ironman. And Heath actually was at the time he was doing massage therapy. Interesting point, Mark.
That's
Heath was
right.
taught, but my brother was going through med school at the time, and he was teaching at a massage therapy school where Heath was at. And so he knew my brother. He connected me with Heath, and we got to know each other. And Heath and I became really good friends, and he became a triathlon coach for me and coached me during one of the big accidents, which I'll get into in a second. But and so that I tell you that story because I had to learn on my own. Yes, my parents were like, this is what we do as you're growing up.
Right.
You're a kid, you just kind of do it. But as I got out of the house, I had to learn on my own, Mark. I had to
Hmm.
learn my own health and wellness journey. And this is an interesting point. Like a lot of people want to blame here or blame there or look over there, and there's all the answers. Look, the answers are in us. We're
Yes.
responsible. We become responsible to find the answers. And my three pillars are exercise and fitness, diet and supplementation. And the third one, the psychological, the emotional, and the spiritual side of health and wellness, which are very similar, again, to your pillars.
Yes.
You just have a fourth one. And so I decided to do this after decades and now I'm an adult. I'm 55 years old, and I started this 2 years ago because I feel like, having gone through that journey, am I perfect at it? No. I mean, I'm learning stuff every day. I'm trying new things. We should never stop trying to figure out our health and wellness because it is our journey. It's not
Right.
someone else's journey, it's ours. And as a result, we need to be responsible for that. And so I'm always trying new things. I'm always testing certain things out, and I want to share that with people. And again, it falls, I believe, within the health and wellness world, it kind of falls into those three pillars. I mean, you
Hmm.
could kind of, that's an umbrella that pretty much covers everything in the health and wellness world. So I cover everything. I've got James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy. He's been on my podcast a couple times. You're probably
He's
familiar
awesome.
with him. He's incredible human being,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
incredible. He's just as
Amazing athlete.
strong mentally,
Yeah. Yeah.
spiritually, and emotionally than he is physically. People don't really realize that. Incredible. I've had people like Golden Harper and all the guys who helped me. I was actually the fifth Beatle, so to speak, to help a company by the name of Ultra Footwear start. Actually, Heath introduced me to those. Well, I knew those guys, but he kind of said, "Hey, they're looking to raise some capital." So I got involved in starting Ultra Footwear with these guys. In fact, it kind of started in our own home here, where we all got together and met about that. And so I've had those guys on my podcast. I've had people about meditations, and I've had people on my podcast that uh, a lady that was just a couple of podcasts before you who's an incredible athlete. She's a mom, a grandmother, and yet she chooses to do a race across Iowa each summer, which is like 7 days on a bike, where you bike for 7 days.
It's
Of
the
course, you
Iowa
stop at
version of
night.
the Ragnar. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it is. I think it's called Ragbri. And it's like amazing. Like, so it's fun to be able to dive in, much like you probably have that same experience. You realize these are like my friends, and some of them are not. Some
Exactly.
of them but you realize they all have a story. We all have something, and we can learn from those. I've had a comedian on, this incredible comedian who's funny. He's got like this hair that sticks up everywhere, and he's a comedian, but he's super deep, and he's like, I would say, a comedian slash philosopher. And then I've had a guy on my podcast that just suddenly starts cheering people on at sports events, and now he's like world famous, and people hire him in to come in. Anyways, I've had these fun experiences. I love it. It's a beautiful thing. At the end of the day, we're all human, right, Mark? And everyone's got a
Exactly.
story.
Yep.
So I love it.
So tell us your story, how you went, we talk about the injury and into that story of, the shredded knee to going to the triath.
Well, there is a shredded knee story. I tore my meniscus like 5 months ago, 6 months ago, and it's recovering well. But the one, maybe, I don't know if this is where you're going, but Heath actually, since Heath was the one who connected us, I'll tell this story. It's very interesting. It would have been 17 years ago, so probably 2008 or so. Heath was helping me train for an Ironman, and it took place in Florida. And I'm fully trained. I'm like now tapered. I want to say I was a week away from this, or maybe two. No, I was about a week away from the triathlon. Fully trained, tapered now, and I'm dirt biking with my boys and a buddy of mine, his three boys, my three boys and his three boys, and of course it's the last run of the day, right, Mark? I mean,
It's
sure,
always the last run. I
it's
can't
the
tell you,
last
I
run.
can't tell you how many times I've been hurt going, I'll just do it one more time.
Just the last run, right? And it's dark, like the sun's gone down, and I'm going over this. It's like a flat top, and I didn't grow up on motorcycles. I'd been dirt biking now for a couple years at this point with my boys, but just kind of dinking around in our neighborhood and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I'm jumping, and of course you got the testosterone flowing, so you got to jump a little further every time, a little further.
And you got to do better
And
than the boys.
of course,
Saying
I
there's, yeah,
mean,
yeah,
of course, I'm a dad, right? So
exactly.
I overshot the jump, and the bike started to go this way, and I had to jump off. It was probably a 20-foot tabletop or so, and all that force and all that speed, I came right down on my right leg and blew out my ankle entirely. Like, even with those solid,
With the riding boots on.
yeah, with the boots and everything, just blasted right out, and I broke my leg. And now at the time, I didn't understand what had happened. Luckily, there was an EMT guy riding on the track as well, so he came over, and they they got me into my truck, and my buddy drove me to the hospital. And it was a pretty serious break. I still, every day, I'm reminded of it every single day. There's not a day that I don't feel this ankle, particularly the ankle, because it just blew completely out of the socket. And so on the way to the hospital, Mark, you could ask Heath this. I called Heath. I'm like, Heath, you think I could do this? He's like, no, of course you can't do it. You just broke your leg. You can't do the Ironman, but we'll work on this. So I went to the hospital, and then I was in the cast for, it was all, for 2 months solid. And then, but I got a physical therapist. My orthopedic surgeon said, good chances you will never do a marathon again. Certainly not an Ironman. He's like, you just got to get it into your mind. You're going to for sure have arthritis. You're not. And so I linked up with Heath and a physical therapist who believed I could do it. And of course, and so I signed up for that same Ironman 1 year later. So it was in Florida. I signed up for it. By the time I got my cast off, and then when I could actually put weight on it, now I'm down to, it would have been 9 months that I had to train for this Ironman fully, having gone through
That's
3 months
a lot
of
of
not even
training in
walking
9
on it.
months. Yeah.
And between my physical therapist and Heath, I started walking. That was it. That's all I could do was walk, and built up, built up, built up, built up. I followed it very methodically. And Heath came with me to Florida, and I remember being there, and he arranged, sneaky little fella, he arranged my wife to be there, and I didn't know she was coming.
Oh, that's
And
Heath.
so it was this beautiful course where you swam, or you swim in the lake there, but then you ran around the lake 3 times for the run. So the marathon was 3 times. The sun was setting, and I called Heath because I knew he was at the finish line. And this was my last lap, and he had me on a run, walk, run, walk, run, walk. And it ended up being my best time I'd ever had too, which is ironic.
Wow.
I called him and I said, this is my favorite time, my wife and I's favorite time of day. Sun is setting. Will you please call her and let her know that I'm thinking about her? I'm a little emotional. He said, you don't have to tell her. You don't have to have me call her. She's right here. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And so I of course ran that much faster. And it was it was a great example to me where we're going to be told in life that you can't do things, that it's not possible.
Right.
But then there's people who believe in us. You even said it on the podcast, the importance of people believing in us and caring about us. I didn't know it was possible, but my physical therapist, who happened to have been an Ironman, knew it was possible. Heath knew it was possible, and with their courage, and their encouragement, and just sheer determination, blowing past what seems impossible. Well, I got Iron Cowboy's book in the back here. I keep it on my desk at all times. And what is it? Redefine impossible. You
Yeah.
end up redefining what is the impossible, create possibilities out of it. And so it was a beautiful moment. And I'm applying that same thing to my knee injury right now. I tore my meniscus. Luckily, I didn't need a surgery, but I tore my meniscus playing hockey. And I was supposed to do an Ironman this year. It was just a little bit too late in the season for me to finish
Right.
it, but I'm going to do it next year. I'll tell you, Mark. I mean, I just had to get it better. And luckily, I didn't need a surgery, but it still required quite a lot of, rehab. And so,
Yeah.
anyways, I hope
Yeah.
that answers you. Sorry if I talked too long on that one, but it's
No,
kind of a
no,
fun story.
that's perfect. And I love that Heath was sneaky. That kind of fits Heath when it comes to that stuff. He was always super, super supportive and of me with my racing. And so he and I more than once would connect up, and we'd go for bike rides when I'm in a hand cycle. Probably one of my favorite pictures taken while I was in a hand cycle, Heath took from his bike as we were getting ready to go up Provo Canyon. And
Really?
so he was riding along with me, and he looked down and he's like, take a picture of Mark while we're going up the canyon. So that's probably one of my favorite pictures of me just on the hand cycle. I had no clue he was doing it. So, but
That's so
Heath
cool.
has been one of my favorite people. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
So,
amazing.
You're going to do another triathlon coming up next year.
Yeah, well, that visit that orthopedic surgeon. I appreciate his concern. He just basically
Yeah.
said, "Look, I've seen a lot of injuries before, and I don't think he's a bad man or anything, but we're going
No,
to be
no.
told that you can't do something in life." And since then, I don't know how many I've done since then, probably 7 or so, and 50 milers and 50 Ks, and does my ankle hurt? Yeah, of course it does.
Yeah.
It's a constant reminder. And will I do 50 milers anymore in the future? I don't know. We'll see, because it does take its toll on the ankle. But I'm just keep going. An object in motion stays in motion, right? That's what the old
Exactly.
Newton's law says, and it's true. If we stay in motion, we will remain in motion, and that's the key. And I find that if I don't exercise, then my ankle starts to hurt really bad. And so I just keep in motion, just keep in motion. And
You
he
know,
said,
and
"You're going to have arthritis." And I figured, hey, and I broke my other leg and my other ankle when I was a teenager. So I got both sides of it. I remember once I was on a youth trip, I was hiking with a bunch of youth, and the one kid said, "Hey, Brother Morton," he was behind me. He's like, "Hey, Brother Morton, you have cankles." I'm like, "Thanks. I appreciate it. I used to have cankles, but it's because I've broken both those ankles. And so they're kind of, that scar tissue never quite goes away. And so, but I just stay in motion. You just stay in motion, and it's amazing what can happen.
yeah, I think there's so many times, and doctors are amazing. There's no doubt. I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a cadre of amazing doctors that rebuilt Humpty Dumpty. And but I still remember to this day that the neurologist that said I had too much nerve damage that I wouldn't be able to really get out of a wheelchair because there was enough damage in my legs. Well, it's awesome now that because of people like Keith and people like Rich Hart, who we had on another episode, he
Mhm.
runs Elevate Fitness down in Orem that does triathlete training and stuff like that.
I've been there. I've been
Because
there.
yeah, because of individuals like that and my wife and other friends and things, that encouragement to be able to continue to push and get to where, okay, I finally was able to get up and get out. And the coolest moment of all that, we talk about creating those deep, lasting connections from a wheelchair. If you go from an able-bodied guy into a wheelchair, whenever you go someplace and you're married, whether you're a man or a woman and you're married and you're in a wheelchair, there's no longer holding hands when you're out and about because the person in the wheelchair has to be pushing along, right? And so my wife, if we go someplace, holding hands was her hand on my shoulder.
Mm.
And so I still remember, and I think about it, and it's a pretty emotional one day when I finally I'd gotten to the point where I could be out of it enough. And we went to go to lunch, and I got out. Instead of grabbing my wheelchair, I thought I'm just going to hobble in. And it was really bad hobbly back then. I'm better now than I was then. But to reach over and hold my wife's hand and walk into the restaurant, to make that direct connection again, was a really huge moment for me, because now I'm moving with her along and we're going the same direction, and we're really together, which was really cool.
That's
So
beautiful. That is
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah, it was a huge difference, and I know when we on your podcast we talked about the going from husband and wife to
Mhm.
patient and caregiver and then back, and
Mhm.
that's an interesting, it's a hard journey, but it's an amazing one if you can make those connections to go from that patient and caregiver back to the husband and wife, and you've been somewhat on that patient and caregiver journey off and on as well, where you're not able to do everything you need to when others need help.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
when you break I broke my right leg and my right ankle, so I couldn't drive for like 3 months. Yeah, you become very grateful for those
Yes.
who can help you. Yeah, like trying to go up and down the stairs with crutches and a broken it's really tough. But grateful for my wife. She's always just been like an amazing rock in my life.
Right. No, those are the best ones. The spouses are amazing. Sounds like your
Incredible.
wife's very similar to mine. Very amazing
Yeah.
persons.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So the other thing, I just want to kind of transition with one of the talking points that we had. We talked about the magic of one more or one thing today. So what's when you talk about the magic of one more, what do you mean by that when you talk about that in your podcast?
You know, um, just
Not
one
one more
more.
jump of a motorcycle. Okay, let's be
No, no, no.
clear.
Don't do that one. Don't do that one.
Yeah,
But
well,
this,
you got to know when to stop the one more.
yeah. But it applies in so much, like if you're in sales, one more call. Just do that one more call or knock on that one more door. Or if you're in the like when I'm in the gym and I'm doing a weight workout, I try to do one more, just one more. If I'm doing sets of 10, 10 reps, a set of 10
Go for
reps, then
11.
I'll just go for 11. Just one
Right.
more. Push through one more. Or if I'm doing like I was doing chest workout last night and I thought I'm finished. I'm just going to try to push out a 1 rep max, and so I added
What's
more
left in the
weight.
tank? Yeah.
Yeah, what's left in the tank and just one more,
Right.
and the whole idea of just the extra mile. I mean, we learn about this, go the extra mile. We learn this is a very spiritual lesson. It applies in everything. And if we could just go one more, and I like that, like to me, it makes a difference in everything that we do in life. And now that I mentioned that, just kind of, what about one more prayer for the day or one more smile to one other person, one more smile? It might be the difference in that person's life, whether they feel optimistic that day or not. One more. Amazing. And in the business world, just one more. Come on. You got one more in you. And if we can
Right.
remember that, it's just a good reminder that the successful in life, they don't just stop. They don't do the status quo. No. Successful, whatever field they're in, they practice the extra mile always. I love to follow like the greats out there, like Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant. I mean, when you get into their mindset, they were always the one more shot, one more practice shot, one more practice. There's non-negotiable. That's why they're so great. They talked about when Michael Jordan left the NBA for that period of time and went in and tried to take up baseball. He got a lot of teasing. You're Michael Jordan. What are you doing? Why are you going? And when they interviewed the guys that were on his team, they're like, this guy's insane. Like he would come hours and hours before anyone else showed up for practice. It wasn't just one more. It was over and over and
Yeah.
over. And then he'd
He's trying
stay
to
after
master a new
practice.
skill. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Tiger Woods, it's not one more. It's like hundreds more, It's to get into the mindset of the greats, you have to do one more. And that's just how you become successful in life. And again, in whatever field. One more 10 minutes on the piano, one more this, one more, whatever it is, So
Exactly. No, I appreciate you sharing that. So, and speaking of one, I love to end our episodes with one question. We're kind of getting wrapped up into the end of time wise. So, based off of our conversation today, what is one thing that someone can do today to build deeper connections around?
I love how you do that with your podcast. I think it's beautiful. And as I've thought about that, I've thought about the word love. Deeper connections start with love. And I think some people
Yes.
maybe misunderstand that word, thinking it's only about I love you to my spouse or I love you to my kids. But love, I mean, there's this amazing book called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And I want to say it's number 2 or number 3 scroll. It's this beautiful book where he speaks in this story. Have you read that? I don't know if you've read this book. It's
Yeah,
an
I have.
amazing
Yeah.
book. It sold countless copies, like tens of millions, like over 100 million copies or something. And he speaks, Og Mandino spoke in a story format, and he tells the story. And the greatest salesman in the world uncovers these 10 scrolls. And one of the scrolls is greet each day with love in your heart. Now, think about that. If we were to greet each day with love in our heart, greet each person with love in our heart, the power of love is it's amazing. Like if we were to, because people will feel whether you love what you do or not. If you don't love what you
Right.
do, they will know. If you're picking up the phone as a salesperson, you're trying to call someone, in this particular case, Og Mandino is talking about love as a salesperson, they will know yes or no whether you love what you do or whether you're just going through the motions. People
Exactly.
will know, your kids will know whether you truly love them or not. Your spouse will know, your neighbors, everything. everything we do, if we greet each day with love in our hearts, that's going to it's going to permeate in all that we do, including all the relationships. And that love, sales is a transfer of emotion, really. And people will feel that emotion on the other side. Now I'm talking about sales in that particular case, but relationships, transferring of emotions, people will feel it. There's something powerful, like right here in this air, like, and it
Mhm.
can be felt even through a podcast, through a phone call, through a video call, through a personal, but it's something real. I don't know if I can explain it, but it's the spirit that exists, and people will know whether you have love in your heart, as Augmendino talks about for the day. And it doesn't have to be just about sales, it's about everything. And
It
what
is.
if we never leave the house without saying, I love you to our spouse, our kids? And it's okay to tell your friends, hey, I love you, brother. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think we could do a little bit better of that in this world. And that's going to help bring those relationships. And you know what? There's enough to divide us in this world. Look, we want to bring down barriers, come with love. There's a lot of
Exactly.
barriers. There's a lot of things. This world's like trying to divide us. I don't know what it is. It's like this weirdness. Let's just go and love people, because you know what? Then it just drops barriers. It's amazing.
It
Anyways,
is. It is.
I hope that,
Yeah, it does. It
makes
does. And
sense.
it definitely does make sense. And Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. That's a great final message for us to end on. We talk a lot about that in the podcast in different episodes. And so that really ties into what we really try and focus on, is making those connections, and love definitely is the best way. Truly deep love that we have can be felt by others. So thank you for reminding us of that and sharing that. So what is the best way that people can get a hold of you? I mean, you've got your podcast, and we'll put the links for A Cup of Joe in the description, so they've got that. Is there anything else that would be best to get a hold of you if they need to?
Yeah, I have two Instagrams. One is A Cup of Joe podcast. It's just called, you have to throw the podcast in at the end because there are a
Right.
couple other Cup of Joes out there.
There,
So
there
I
are a
use
few. Yeah.
A Cup of Joe podcast Instagram. You can follow me on there.
Okay.
Also I have All the Places You'll Run, my podcast. I created this podcast instead of just Joe Morton. I created The Places You'll Run because one of my favorite books is by Dr. Seuss is The
Yeah.
Places You'll Go. So I changed it to Oh, the Places You'll Run, because everywhere I go, I try to run. It's amazing. This world is an amazing place. This country is an amazing place. So I try to run or walk wherever I'm at. So Oh, the Places You'll Run, you'll find me on that podcast, on that
On
Instagram
that
as well. So
Instagram
those
as
two
well.
Instagrams, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Joe, for coming on, and so appreciate you spending a few minutes with us today. So thank you. And for those of you that are tuning in with us from Knee to Knee, thank you for spending a few minutes as well, and listening to us and having a chance to get to know Joe and his A Cup of Joe podcast. And thank you for tuning into Knee to Knee. We sure appreciate it. And we will catch you on the next episode. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone.